G'day friends, welcome to Mermay Day 12, I believe. And today I'm doing a stamp and illustration type technique, which if you haven't heard, is something I do a lot of times. Whenever I don't want to start with the base of a drawing, I have a whole bunch of stamp sets that I sell on Etsy as well. Shameless plug, go to my Etsy store and buy them all. They are kind of like foundation stamps or like blueprints, and I'll stamp it out at like half opacity, basically a ghost stamp. So you ink it all up, you stamp it off on the side, and then you use the second generation print to stamp it out, or just use a really light ink pad or something that washes away with water, whatever you want to use. All of that to say, I stamp it out as a base and then I just draw on top of it. So essentially I have the base of my illustration done. I don't have to worry about proportions or, putting it all together. I don't have to worry about anatomy. I can just skip that whole step and get straight into the drawing and the fun and the decorating and the costuming and whatever you want to call it, but essentially overlaying my drawing on top. But that is the base, and I use these stamps for that, and that is mostly what all my stamp sets are about. Some of them, the concept stamp sets, were created with more like kind of puzzle piecing, collage play in mind, but doing it with stamping, just to kind of stimulate that creative process and create some really interesting results. But for the most part, what I pull my stamps out for is to lay them down very lightly and then draw over the top of them. And I love it. I think it's a great way to skip a whole bunch of steps that usually aren't that necessary. For me, I feel like, I just don't believe there's a ton of virtue in, drawing the same drawing as a base every single time to get your proportions right. Sometimes if you can skip a step, I think it's fine. I do think, however, and never get me wrong here, I do think it is important that you do learn how to do it and be able to do it without a stamp set, just because for your own peace of mind, it's kind of easier to know that you can at least start somewhere, but also it's not necessary. And if that's just not the way you have fun, I say use the stamp and just draw on top of it. Also, that is, so that's the technique that I've done, and I ended up using Copic markers for this, so it's got a very flat kind of coloring effect. I love the way that these turned out, very dramatic, really enjoyed, they kind of relate to each other. I did the two side by side, so hopefully you enjoy today's Mermay piece. This is another one of my favorites. I had two really good days back to back. Not that the other days were bad days, but I specifically remember having these two back to back thinking, oh, I'm really onto something here. I'm loving the work. So today, I figured I'd just have a little bit of a brief chat with you because I'm about to go into work. I'm about to go and do Disneyland Parade, which I'm very excited about. It is the end of my work week, and last night was a lot of energy because it was the closing of a show, and usually you've just got a whole bunch of extra adrenaline for those last shows. So my body's feeling a little rough and sore today. We got up early to go and have breakfast with a friend who is visiting from out of town, and we were having so many chats about, because we all met in Japan. Steve met him in Japan, I met him in Japan. We all know each other from there. And essentially just spent the whole morning kind of catching up and revisiting all of our memories from that time, which I have to say, like, once we wrapped it all up and, he has to go and do work, I have to go and do work, we dropped Steve off at work, like, once our little social hang kind of ended, I felt, like, sad, like, I don't know, like weirdly sad in a way that I haven't felt in a long time. And it's always interesting, I've talked about this before, but you meet so many people from all around the world and your lives kind of just weave in and out. And, I'm from Australia, this person's from America, this person's from Great Britain, and blah, blah, blah. And we all end up, on these contracts, and sometimes we go and do other contracts with each other, or, one friend will recommend, like I really ended up at Royal Caribbean because one of the guys I danced with in my first contract in Tokyo, he worked for Royal Caribbean. And when I said, oh, I don't have anything to do after this, he had suggested, why don't you apply? And he helped me. He took my headshots, he helped me put together a little show reel, he gave me the person to send it to, and I sent it to them, and that's how I got put onto Royal Caribbean. So a lot of the time we filter through these kind of channels and we're on these pipelines to different places, and we actually cross over and meet with a lot of the same people. It is a bizarrely small world considering how many professional dancers there are out there, professional entertainers, but we pretty much all know each other. Like, it'd be rare if you find someone who doesn't know one of your friends, and especially as the older you get and the more that you do, your network is super wide and super deep. So it was just interesting because, we're obviously relating on all these experiences that we had, and we felt very nostalgic, but then also all of these friendships that I had, and we had also worked in another place together, like at different times, but crossed over with tons of different people that we both knew and we both ended up working with. So it was just like the most intense little, quick trip down memory lane. And, I'm a very nostalgic person. I'm very sentimental. Like, you don't have to do much to get me to go on a walk down memory lane. But afterwards, I just felt very sad, and I don't know what it is. It was a happy conversation. They're all happy memories, and I enjoyed it. And I can only liken it to, um, like feeling sad that that time is gone. Do you know what I mean? Like I was younger then, and we were talking about being, 18, 19, 20, 21, like all the things you get up to when you're that age, and all of the experiences that I'd had. I felt like, honestly, I mean, I was a very different person back then, but I also felt very naive back then. I don't really know if I had, like, I don't think you described me as someone that had my wits about me. For as adult as I feel like I can be now, even though sometimes I'm fighting against it. But yeah, I felt like I was just a teenager running through the world, and there was quite an exciting and, naive enjoyment to seeing the world so simply. And I don't even think that this makes me like a jaded, cynical person now. I do think sometimes I struggle with those things, as my personality is, but I don't know. I think I maybe felt a little sad that that time is gone. And I'm also not sad at the same time, because I feel like, the age that I'm at now, I'm really coming into myself and my understanding of who I am, what I like, what I want to do, what I want to do with my time, how I want to spend my time, the experiences that I want to have. I feel like I'm a little bit more grown up, and I feel like, that puts me in a bit of a different place with different perspective. I do miss how naive I was back in, those early days. I really do miss how I just thought it would all happen for me all the time, because that was a lot more freeing, I'll just be honest, than some of the thought processes I get stuck into now. I kind of talked about that a little bit, and, maybe as nostalgic as it all was, I think there's a hard thing for me to accept that I had this whole career straight out of high school and dancing, and then it stopped, and then I've had this completely separate experience with my business and doing art journaling. And now that these things are coexisting in my life, I've always said I felt guilty for like wanting to go back to dance and wanting to occupy a lot of my time with that, because I felt like I was feeling ungrateful for the business that I had built and the community that I share it with on, social media. But it was never that. I didn't want to like not do art journaling. I just wanted dance to be my job. I wanted to remember what that was like and not have to, because I always felt more qualified to dance. Like, as funny as it is that I make all these videos and I show you all these things that I'm proud of as far as art goes, that was all just self-taught and just all passion led. But dance I actually trained for. Like, that was a job I felt like I'd been working at since I was 7 years old. You know what I mean? Like, I had put the work in. There's no imposter syndrome when it comes to dancing with me. I feel like that's something I'm so qualified to do. So I think it was always just more of a safe thought for me that my employment would be dance, and that's how I'd pay my bills, because that seemed logical and right. And, people would actually employ me to do it. No one employs me to be an art journaler. It's just a small business that manages to make money. And I'm, always shocked that there is still opportunity out there for it. But that all seems really up in the air. And, I guess the pandemic showed everyone that every kind of job was kind of up in the air at some point, right? So it was a little weird to have these conversations and, have a bit of a realization that since dance has come back, and my allergies, since dance has come back and I've been thinking about things that I want to do, like I said, I've had, experiences kind of weigh heavy on my chest a little bit, and I'm having that desire to go and chase after something again that I haven't had for so long, because I think for so long I was just wanting to dance again at all, period, end of, that I was like, I will take anything. I will do the least of the jobs that I can get. Like, I will take the table scraps, just let me dance. I was so desperate to do it that that was the mentality that I came back with, and very, very grateful. And I think I've kept telling myself, like, just be grateful you get to do it at all. Like, no one wants to hire you because you're too big. No one wants to hire you because you're too old. No one wants to hire you because you're this or you're that or you're whatever. All of these feelings where I'm like, I should just be grateful that anyone lets me do it at all at this point. I think I entered the space with that, which is never the perspective I had before. Like I said, I was so delusional. I was like, everything belongs to me. All the dance jobs are mine if I want them. That's how I used to feel. So now, coming back older and seemingly wiser, I've set myself up to believe that I just deserve whatever scraps I can get. And I will not turn my nose up at any opportunity that I've been given. But I think now that I'm really conditioning myself back into it all, and opportunities seem to be coming my way more frequently than they were before, I think my heart has started to let myself want for more than what I'm currently doing. And I love what I'm currently doing. So that's the kind of interesting period that I'm in, where I think I'm just contemplating if I go and chase after new experiences that I feel like could be an option for me. And the more that I do that, again, I balance that with my art journaling and my jlbCREATIVE business, which is always, it's always fluctuating. It's always in a state of like constant change. So I feel like I am allowed to change my business along with it. But yeah, it's just a really interesting thing. And I think having these conversations and reconnecting with this old friend has just really set my mind on kind of letting myself want for more and new dance experiences, and resetting my mind to not feeling, obviously feeling grateful, but to not thinking that all I deserve are just whatever someone's willing to give me. Like, that I should feel confident in accepting opportunities. I should feel like I have always been trained to do this, and that this is something that I can do. And I think it's also because my story, like, believe it or not, I share my personal story on here all the time, but my story is something that I feel a little bit kind of weird about sharing in a dance space, because having such a long break in your resume just I feel like always looked so bad. And even though people are very gracious with me because they know that I had an accident, or if I explain it to them, they go, well, that makes sense, of course you would have a break. Realistically, that break would have been 16 to 18 months long max. And it was. I really did train to get back. I went through all that physical therapy. I went through all that training to get back to where I was able to be employed again. It just didn't happen. Like, I actually was offered a contract. I don't know if I've shared this before. I think I have. Steve and I were both offered a contract. I had said I would love to go back to Disney Cruise Line, and that I would love to go with my partner, Steve. And they were very accommodating and had offered to put us both on a ship together. And it was a contract that I absolutely would have said yes to, but it came about 3 months too early, the contract offer. And in hindsight, I hope Steve doesn't regret it too much. Maybe he should have just done it. I didn't say he couldn't do it. He just felt like, well, if I'm not going to do it, I shouldn't go without James. And I probably would have been a little upset, to be honest, if he did. And I would have been more upset because I couldn't go, not that he did. But yeah, he chose not to. I couldn't. I physically, at that point, I was still learning how to walk properly and just getting through that part of physical therapy, and I just couldn't even fathom dancing by that point. So timing wise, that was, and then that's like a really weird blip in the story, because essentially I felt like once once my accident happened, I had no opportunities I could get for 7 years, but technically 12 months later I did have an opportunity. I just couldn't physically do it. So I think I kind of put that out of my head sometimes, because I feel like it was very, very upsetting. Like, it was very, very hard to say no, knowing that I couldn't do it. And I wanted to say yes so badly. I wanted to just pretend like I could do it. I wanted to just show up and have them be like, oh, it's fine, but it's just not. You can't go, you can't go and not be able to do your job. So, ooh, that's a weird part of it. And I just feel like sharing all of that story, people have grace. for that. But then I think they wonder, just like I had wondered for so long, well, what happened after you were healed and you went to all these auditions? Could you just not book a job? And that's just real. I couldn't book the gig. I could get to the end of the audition, I just couldn't book it. And before that, my delusional confidence, I had really booked a lot of the stuff that I went for. Like, I had never really had a hard time getting a job before. Even here at Disneyland, when they used to have the Aladdin show in the Hyperion, I had booked that. I just didn't have a green card. And so when we were talking about the terms of employment, it had come up, do you have a green card? And I said, no. And they said, oh, we thought you had one. And I had written on the card, this is back in the day, they used to have little paper cards where you would have to put some information on, and I would literally check, are you authorized to work in the United States? No. I put it on the box. I was like, there's no point lying on that. It's going to be a problem. So I checked no, and they went back and looked, and they were like, sorry, that was an oversight on our part. If you can get a green card, we'd love to have you, but obviously if you can't, we can't do it. And I think back in the day, they used to sponsor people, but not for an ensemble track. For me, in 2014, like, that was never going to happen. So even, all up until that point, I had really just felt like, if I want to do this dance job, I just have to go and audition for it and it'll be mine. And I had such great luck. I'd worked very hard to be able to be, marketable to all those jobs, but, just a lot of the time it was just right place, right time, right skill set. And I just felt like everything was for me. And I was delusional, and I was 18, 19, 20, like, I was competitive. I felt like that was who I was. Separating a lot of my identity from my work and my career after my accident was rough, and I think a lot of people experienced that through the pandemic. Who am I without my work? Who am I without my job? Who am I without my title? And I watched Steve go through that, and I felt like I had some experience and some wisdom to offer him at that point. But yeah, I think now I'm ready to just accept that it was what it was. That was the career I had. That was an accident I had. That was the journey I had to get back. I was resilient, and I was, I had perseverance like I'd never known before. Obviously I had optimism, but it was rough, and I hated it, and I tried my best, and, now it's working out again in a period where I never thought I would really dance at this age. And now I'm having some of the best times I've ever had. Just all very interesting. I mean, I think it doesn't look like a typical story that, a lot of my friends have, but I can't change it, and I can't be ashamed of it. And I'm going to just focus on what makes me happy in these experiences and let that be what it is. I mean, at the end of the day, I have never really wanted to have all these experiences that were so grand, or like, not that they're not. I mean, a lot of people dream to do some of the stuff that I wanted to do. I dreamed to do the stuff that I wanted to do. I wanted to work in Tokyo Disneyland when I was a teenager. Like, that was a dream of mine. But it's not like, when you go, you see it perform, you're like, oh, you can be on Broadway one day. I have never wanted to be on Broadway. It's just never been a goal. I think it's fantastic for people that want to do it. It seems like a rough road, and good luck to everybody. But that has never been, it's never even been on my heart to just want to do it. Even musicals, to a lesser extent, where I was less interested in because it seemed like less dancing. I just love production shows. I love dancing at theme parks. I love dancing on cruise ships. I love doing all the old school jazz and all the cheesy smiles and all the stuff that we do. I really do love it. And so I've always been happy with that. And I don't think I should feel whatever residual part of shame I feel for not having, come back sooner, or for not being able to book any of those jobs as bookable as I thought they were, and I just couldn't do it. I think I have to unpack a little bit of that now that I'm in a new space, and I feel like I'm wanting for more. So it's a very interesting experience. I feel like it's literally just happened today, and I think the sadness was a little bit nostalgic and a little bit, grieving my youth in a sense, but I'm still very young. I can still go and do a ton of things. So I'm going to focus on that, choose the things that I want to do with the time I still have to enjoy the body that is still going, and take you along for the journey for as long as I can. This is what I love about social media too. And you know what? It has been interesting. I know some of you are probably so sick of hearing the dancing, but it's going to stick around. It's been interesting to talk about other experiences and journal about those experiences, because before, sometimes it used to be so meta, and I'd be talking about journaling and journaling about journaling and journaling about journaling about journaling. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was, when this was the only thing I was focused on, it all felt very like it would just recycle in on itself. And sometimes I wanted to have, this is why I love travel journaling. I wanted to have experiences that I could document creatively, or, put into a journal that seemed a little bit more real life, because I felt like a lot of people I was talking to weren't journaling about having a journaling business. They were journaling about their life, and my life was all about journaling. So it got a little meta, and I'm really happy that I have a ton of other source material now to pull from and to be inspired by. Honestly, I feel like I'm loving Mermay. It's really re-inspired me to, not that I needed help, but it's really re-inspired me just to get more creative, get more free and loose and wild, and I'm having a blast. So I'm going to put it all down to having a wonderful life at the moment. Let's fingers crossed that everything stays exactly as it is right now. But if anything should change, the journaling will help with that too, I'm sure. I'm just having so much fun. I'm really happy. So I'm happy to share that with you. Have a wonderful day, everyone. I gotta get to work. See you later. Bye.